Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the second of our five-part series for our Spring Festival. My name is Kathy Hawkins. Welcome. We have a lot of folks joining us from all corners of the world. Last I checked, I think we had 14 countries represented. So we are just tickled to have you joining us. While we are having folks join, we are going to start a poll, and we'll take a minute or two so that folks can take an opportunity to fill this out. We would love your feedback. Just wanting to learn a little bit more about the folks who are joining us, and it gives us a better chance to serve you a little bit more fully. So our poll is starting, and again, welcome. Just a few notes on today's webinar. It is being live captioned as well as recorded. So if you have to step back for a minute or two, or you're not able to be here for the whole thing, we will be sending out the fully recorded, edited version at the end of the month. So no worries there. And we want to say thanks to our individual who is with us from Caption First, who's doing the live captioning today. We want to be here to be serving everybody who is in need with any of the resources or the opportunities that TimeSlips provides. So again, we're glad you're here. If you could please take a minute to fill out the poll while those of you are joining us. We have about 44 people who have joined, and we'll give it another minute or two before we get started. Due to the size of our attendee list, what we're doing is asking if individuals can keep their microphone muted and their video turned off if you're joining from a computer or a device. And if you are joining us by phone, if you could also keep your sound muted. It'll just help with the transmission of making sure that our panelists can be heard okay. So today's webinar is being live captioned, and we also have stream text available. And what you can do, CART is also available via stream text. You can go to the link in the chat and access it. And then anybody who needs that, then you've got it. So hello, and welcome. We have folks coming in from all over. I think what we'll do, since we're at about 47 people, looks like we're getting some really good feedback on our poll. We'll give it another few seconds. It'll have been running for about 2 minutes. And I want to make sure we have plenty of time for such incredible speakers to be joining us. So with that, it is 2 minutes after. I think I'll go ahead and I'll stop the poll. And then I'm going to go ahead and introduce our moderator for today's panel, TimeSlips Founder Ann Basting. She will be hosting today's conversation with the panelists, and she'll introduce them shortly. I'm pleased to introduce you to Ann this afternoon. She is the founder of TimeSlips, a faculty member at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee in the English department. And she's also an Ashoka Fellow, a MacArthur Fellow, and the lead creative strategist for TimeSlips. She inspires people around the world to engage creatively, to make connections and build community in meaningful ways by asking open-ended questions that have no right or wrong answers. And her latest book, Creative Care, A Revolutionary Approach to Dementia and Elder Care, was published by HarperCollins in spring 2020. So Ann, I will turn it over to you.
Well, that was quite a lovely introduction. Thank you so much. I get the great privilege of introducing our panelists today. We really have folks from all over the world, which is thrilling, and people that I've been in conversation with at different times and different moments. And I'm just thrilled to have them all come together to speak with you and each other. They're part of our certified facilitator network. Kathy tells me this slide is already out of date. We have 946 certified facilitators all around the world. And when we redid our website, the greatest thing I could imagine was creating a map that showed where everyone was all over the world, so that you all can see what an incredible network that you're part of. Here we go. Our first speaker is Yoko Hayashi. She founded Arts Alive in 2009 with the aim of empowering those underserved through participatory arts programs. She developed Art Trip, an evidence-based art program for people with dementia, and offers training seminars for art conductors, its program facilitator. She has authored numerous publications and holds an MFA from Columbia University in Arts Administration. She's currently a professor of arts management at Shobi University. Next up is my friend Sarah Jacobus. She's a TimeSlips certified facilitator and master trainer based in Los Angeles, facilitating TimeSlips groups in senior centers, residential care, adult day programs since 2014. In 2019, she managed a year-long TimeSlips project, training staff and guiding 10 Los Angeles area organizations towards certification as creative communities of care, our organizational training. She is also a licensed clinical social worker with a Master's of Fine Arts in creative writing. We're lucky today to have Meirin Abe joining us. She received her bachelor's degree from the School of Performing and Visual Arts in Addis Ababa University in Ethiopia. After graduation, she started her own theater production company and produced 4 productions. In 2018, Meirin became country director for the Art in Medicine Project and representative for Arts in the Health Early Career Research Network. In 2019, she joined the Atlantic Fellowship for Equity in Brain Health at the Global Brain Health Institute. We have several friends there as well. Next is my friend Luca Carli Bellola, an educator since 1989. In 2005, he started working with older fragile people and as activity coordinator at the nursing home V. Chiarughi in Empoli, or Florence, near Florence, opened its first Alzheimer's Cafe in Florence in 2009. The following year, he introduced the TimeSlips method in Italy, I remember it well, organizing a seminal workshop in Florence with me coming all the way over, and they wined and dined me very well. I was very happy in Florence. He is part of the coordination team of the Tuscan Museum System for Alzheimer's and works with the educational department at the Palazzo Strozzi and other museums in Tuscany to design and run programs for people with dementia. He collaborates with the organization of the Alzheimer Fest, the most important Italian event dedicated to people living with dementia. And next we have Jan Bewley. Jan is addicted to learning and has been a teacher learner for most of her life. She feels very privileged to be sharing her love of drama education and literacy with the Faculty of Education at Memorial University in St. John's, Newfoundland, Canada. Jan has a PhD from the Steinhardt School at New York University and is fond of singing, gardening, storytelling, hiking, and writing. An advocate for arts education with marginalized communities, she enjoys sharing the magic of TimeSlips with a wonderful group of story weavers in St. John's each Wednesday afternoon. And we have Ali Kata. Ali's mission in life is to make a difference in the lives of the elderly by bringing joy and meaning into their life in his unique way. His career's primary goal is to make creative arts accessible to elders in general and those living with dementia. After 9 years in the financial industry, he completed a nursing degree, a graduate certificate in social entrepreneurship and aging, and a certificate in expressive arts therapy. Collaborative in his work, he utilizes multiple creative arts programs to mentor and train staff and students to engage people with dementia meaningfully. And last but definitely not least, Charmaine Gomabe is the wellness coordinator for Club 36 adult day programs of the Alzheimer's Society of Calgary. In addition to nursing duties, she engages in meaningful and creative programs for persons with dementia. She graduated from Bow Valley College in 2016 as a licensed practical nurse. Charmaine believes that promoting autonomy and person-centered care will enable those impacted by dementia to have an enhanced quality of life. That is quite an array of speakers, and I can't wait for them to share their wisdom with you. Thank you for joining us for the second webinar of our Spring Creative Care Festival, I should say. We are so excited to have you all here today with us, whether it's your first time joining us or if you attended one of our previous events. If you have questions, use the chat function, and we'll have 20 minutes of Q&A at the end of our session. Our panelists represent, as I said, the almost 1,000 TimeSlips certified facilitators worldwide, and will give insight into how they have used the TimeSlips experiences to shape creative engagement during this really challenging time of the pandemic. But first, I want to acknowledge, and we come to you from all over the world, but I want to tell you where I am and to acknowledge the land that I'm upon. I acknowledge that I am in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in the United States, and that we are on the traditional Potawatomi, Ho-Chunk, and Menominee homeland along the southwest shores of Michigami, North America's largest system of freshwater lakes, where the Milwaukee, Menominee, and Kinnickinnick rivers meet, and the people of Wisconsin's sovereign Anishinaabe, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Oneida, and Mohican nations all remain present. So here is what we do. Here's what we'll do. Kathy asks us to drop into the chat the name of your current city and state to find out which native land you're living on. You can actually go to the website, land.codeforanchorage.org, and we can find out and let you know what native land you're living on. What we'll do today, I've already skipped past the first part. We've checked that off our list, introduce our panelists. We're going to hear how they've used creative engagement during COVID-19 and open up the conversation for your questions. So we have plenty of time for our panelists to share. Please hold the questions until the end, but you can put them in the chat and we'll follow them as well. So here at long last is our first question. And I'm going to come off of this stop screen share so you can see everyone. And my first question is just for folks to introduce themselves to you. Talk really briefly, just to give you a snapshot, a little bit more detail than I did, perhaps, or maybe a little different detail of who they serve, how many people, the usual way that you're doing your service or your programming, and then mainly how you had to adjust, what you did to adjust to the pandemic. And I will start with Jan.
Hello, everybody from St. John's, Newfoundland, and thanks, Anne, for that lovely intro. I have the amazing privilege of working with 14, I call them story weavers, as part of a seniors group that I meet in a convent, actually. It's a wonderful place to be. We meet in a room called the Orchid Room, which is well named. It's a beautiful sitting area with lots of natural light. I offer time slips every Wednesday from 2 to 3:30. There has been an interesting ritual that has happened since I have been allowed to come back. We were shut out, of course, as everyone else was, but we've decided that we need to celebrate with ice cream. So at the end of every time slip storytelling, I sit with a group of ice cream lovers. And if ever there was anything equally delicious to storytelling, it's ending with a little tub of ice cream. So that's quite a new phenomenon. We decided that life is too short and that we need to spend even a little bit more time. Normally, I'm there for an hour, but that last half hour has become yet another circle of storytelling around memories of ice cream and memories of wonderful warm days that we recall before COVID. I am a drama lover. I teach drama education as part of my teaching at Memorial University with student teachers. So I bring a great deal of story object telling to the work I do, in addition to the wonderful photography that the photographs that are part of the TimeSlips story program. I always bring in something like a robin's nest or a clothespin or a t-shirt, a pair of baby booties, a robin's eggshell. Sometimes it's an odd thing like a bag of chips, and we pass it around, and that has been an amazing story telling spark. One time I brought in a mask that I had made as part of my teaching at the university, and that sparked an incredible, I have two of them here. They wanted me to share these with you. This was in response to a photograph of an old man who we decided was fussy Uncle Joe. And this is his wife, Bessie. And we created a wonderful play based on these masks. So I had permission to bring them. Actually, they live at the center where the storytellers are, and they're there to look at and to reminisce and to remember. So I brought the masks home on Wednesday and yesterday, and promised to bring them back. So that's been an interesting part of the storytelling that I've done. I'll stop there in case there's a need for a question to guide me, Anne.
Oh, no, that's great. It's perfect. I just thought it's going to be so fascinating because how people interpret or uh, articulate the use of time slips. Uh, in our approach, people use prompts and the improvisational process. And really, I just wrote in the chat that the prompt can really be anything, and it's really the communication process around it and the invitation for expression that becomes the core of the approach. So it's really fascinating to see how everyone is using it so differently. I turn to Sarah.
Thank you. I'm Sarah Jacobus, coming to you from Tongva land in Los Angeles, California. A pleasure to be here this morning in Los Angeles. As Anne said, I have been as a certified facilitator of TimeSlips since 2014, initially as part of my job, or a part that I created of a job as a staff social worker at a senior center of a large social service agency. And what I knew was that creative engagement was what I wanted to do more than anything else I was doing in my job. And so 5.5 years ago, left that job and created my own practice that I call Imagine That, of doing time slips and the Alzheimer's Poetry Project and some improv in a variety of community-based settings, residential care, day programs, sort of this itinerant time slips person carrying my little box of photographs and name tags with me all around the Los Angeles area. And some of my favorite aspects of the time slips groups that I had the opportunity to work with over time were the variety of culminating projects and events that we did. And I think one of my favorites we did exhibits, we did books, were plays that we created using elements of different time slip stories and integrating them, so that a character from one story would show up in somebody else's story. And using a sort of group improvisational process, we created then a script for a play that we were able to present live at the senior center to large audiences, and then adapted into a radio drama, recorded as a radio drama that each of the participants had a copy of. So that was something that we loved doing, and really gave everyone a sense of carrying the process through to a really lovely product. Um, Most of that, as we all know, came to a screeching halt at the beginning of last year. And this has been a year of many pivots. I lost the majority of work that I'd had, and really had to start thinking about how to keep it going. And so was actively involved in the postcard campaign that TimeSlips initiated early last year. And out of a desire to continue connection with elders, I approached a couple volunteer networks that had sprung up about doing phone support, and the idea of bringing creative engagement into that process of phone support. So started volunteering as a phone reassurance caller with one of the local Meals on Wheels programs. And after a couple months with one client in particular, I asked him if he'd be interested to answer a different kind of a question than the sort of care management oriented questions that were part of the call script, and started doing a beautiful question with him each week, which not surprisingly was really delightful for both of us. And so I was trying to get some traction with the Meals on Wheels organization to implement this agency-wide. And last summer had the sort of surprise and pleasure of connecting with a man named Park Cofield here in Los Angeles in the chat on the virtual Creative Care Institute, and told him that I was starting to do beautiful questions with my phone reassurance caller, and sort of jumped him into doing that. And he and I started talking, and over the months, we decided to approach Meals on Wheels with the proposal to do a training for Meals on Wheels volunteer callers and meal delivery people. So in January, we offered a webinar and introduced the Meals on Wheels volunteers to TimeSlips concepts, to the concept of a beautiful question, did some practice and some role playing. And happily, the agency has really put some muscle behind it, and has now incorporated a beautiful question each week into our call script. We have another webinar actually this very afternoon. They really want to follow up and reinforce that training and follow up with the callers. And then I started doing TimeSlips on Zoom with Alzheimer's Los Angeles, which used to be Alzheimer's Association, but is basically that entity here. And if we have a chance later in our webinar to talk more about remote delivery on Zoom, I'd be happy to address that then. But that's been an adventure, and something that I feel like I'm always fine tuning, but feels very good to be doing TimeSlips again, and also keeping up with my trainees and letting them know that they're supported, that they're part of a community, and that as a master trainer, I'm there for them and continue to be in ways that support their trajectory.
That's great. And the synergies of the work that Sam Goodrich has been doing with our Meals on Wheels chapters, there's a whole energy around this shifting toward beautiful questions through the telestories type engagement that there's a lot of resources on. You can find them on the TimeSlips site. The work Park and Sarah have been doing is just thrilling, that the systems are starting to take it up. In order to get all the way around the circle, I'm going to ask people to be a little bit more succinct so that we can get around to the delightful other questions. So Charmaine and Ali, if you guys could address sort of describing your program, and then how you had to shift during the pandemic.
Hello, my name is Ali Kada again, and I'm again privileged to be here. So I've been with the Alzheimer's Society of Calgary for over 8 years now, and just like what Anne said in my profile, I've always wanted to bring creativity as a form of care. I love the creative care that Anne came up with. So it became my goal to engage communities because my background is nursing. And when I was a kid, I always wanted to become an artist, actually. But I grew up in an environment wherein being an artist is not a career. So when I got a job with the Alzheimer's Society of Calgary, it brought back to me the one thing that I love, which is creative arts. So since then, I took trainings from Elizabeth Locon, from Gary Glazner, which is the pioneers of all this, and of course, 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to get trained with TimeSlips. And then a year later, I brought Creative Campus to Calgary, and that kind of opened up a lot of opportunities in terms of collaborating with other organizations that provide creative programs as well. Through TimeSlips, we were able to spark interest from StoryShare Alberta, and a couple of their facilitators or storytellers, they call them, are actually have been certified as a TimeSlips facilitator, and these are seasoned ladies, storytellers. But the concept that they learned from TimeSlips was just phenomenal, and they're just extremely happy. And we're also in collaboration with W Puppet Theater, which is a local puppetry organizations, and with Inside Out Theater, which also do improvisation. And it's just amazing to see all this culminations of creative arts coming together, and our clients enjoy it. And our goal is to spread this creativity out in the community. So, and then COVID hit us, and it actually allowed us to, it took probably a day or two to transition from in-person programming to virtual programming. And so we didn't really have that difficulty in shifting to in-person to virtual programming. I am surrounded by creative staff like Charmaine in terms of like tech. She's really good at it. So that's the easiness of transitioning into virtual programming. So I'll probably let Charmaine continue and add more to it.
Yeah, thanks, Ali. So we are from the Adult Day Program, Club 36, with the Alzheimer's Society of Calgary. Our usual setting was when we were in person, again, was the day program. We did everything. We served the caregivers by providing them with respite. The caregivers send their loved ones to our program, which we then provide the meaningful activities. And like Ali said, our TimeSlips and OMA are our leading creative programs. And we are known for implementing these creative programs and straying away from the conventional ones that you see in the long term. We ran it via Zoom, and we actually had the special opportunity to run it as an intergenerational program with University of Calgary nursing students. And that was really successful. A lot of the elders were really happy to create that connection that was being missed during the pandemic. So yeah, because at that point, it's not just about the storytelling anymore, but rather that these elements become a key concept to engage others, as well as designing our other programs.
That's great. Thank you so much. Coming around to Yoko. You're muted, Yoko, so if you could unmute. Thank you.
Hi again. I'm Yoko Hayashi. I'm joining from Tokyo, Japan. It's really late for me, so I try to be really awake. And then, as Anne mentioned kindly, that I'm a founder of Arts Alive, which is a nonprofit organization in Japan, and we have been providing the program called Art Trip, which is a dialogue-based program, as well as training facilitators, art conductors for the program. And I'd like to mention that before the pandemic, that we have had a regular programs at the National Museum of Western Art, and as well as other 27 museums, art museums, and as well as many care facilities being with the programs provided by Arts Alive, and also programs provided by the people we train. And then I'd like to mention that as between my work at the university and my work at the Arts Alive and then doing art trip, I really didn't have much time to conduct TimeSlips. However, right after I was certified right after I was certified as a TimeSlips facilitator, I had the opportunity to conduct 8 programs with the people with dementia in Japan and their family members. And then the owner of the Dementia Cafe, who invited me to conduct the 8 time slips, actually published this little booklet with all the stories, see, of the they created based on the time slips prompts. And this was a huge success. And then the owner of the Dementia Cafe really asked me to start a training program for TimeSlips, but I really didn't have time to do it. However, this COVID hit last year, and we obviously switched all art program, although we couldn't do anything, we had to stop all the programs at care facilities as well as art museums. We managed to switch the program to Zoom. So we have been providing art trip to those people who are mostly at home with their family members, caregivers. And then we also started offering art trip, which is called art trip at home, to ordinary seniors, not just the people with dementia and family members, but ordinary seniors, because these people are also restricted to stay home and they cannot go to the museum or anything. They're afraid of going to the city, first of all. And this program has been a huge success and very much appreciated by them. Many of them have become members, regular members. But I'd like to mention that how I incorporated the skill I learned as a TimeSlips facilitator to art trip. Because I think that the TimeSlips really has a wonderful way to create stories. As Anne always mentioned, it's a beautiful stories. I especially like the way that the TimeSlips asks questions about 5 senses, like what kind of sound, smell, the texture, and all these things that which are not usually related to artworks. But I can ask the people, what kind of sound do you hear from this painting, or what you can be hearing, So this is the kind of question that really stimulate the people with dementia well, so they can answer. I know that they are much more sensitive to 5 senses than verbal description. So I'm very glad that I learned this skill. And also I had opportunity to teach corporate people through my board member. So I have trained almost 1,000 corporate business people in Japan, and I developed a special program for corporate training program, and in which that I incorporated this element of story making. So it's a total imagination, because corporate people really do not have much of a creative thinking, and they are much more in logical and structured thinking. So it's very good to ask them to create a story freely. So because there's no wrong or right answers, and anything can be a story. And that made them realize that how they are lack of the imagination. And also that during the pandemic, wonderful thing that which happened to me, no. So that was another question, sorry. And then the other thing that we started during the pandemic is that because I have a friend who was trained to do the art program at the Museum of Modern Art together several years ago. And then Christina, my friend in Florence, and also Luca here as one of the panelists, we collaborated and we both created a story with the people with dementia based on the same image, same photograph. It was actually photographed by an artist, American artist. And then it turned out that we both created a completely different story, two completely different stories based on one image. And that was really fascinating. And these people, old people with dementia and their family members, are fascinated to be connected with the people in Florence or the Tuscany. Like for us, it's like a early evening, and for them, it's like a morning. And but that was a really a great opportunity. We never thought of this if there was no pandemic. And then they really liked the program, so we did the program 3 times. So as a result of this, that it made me think that we should do more of this. So I applied for a grant to our government to fund to publish a leaflet of the stories created by people with dementia in Japan and in other countries, so that we can show the rest of the world, the people who do not know the creativity that these people have, that these people can be really, really creative. It can create a great story that which impress all of us. So this is, and also that I'm now in the process of developing a program facilitator. Sorry, I'm in the process of developing online training course for a facilitator of a photo story. I didn't use the word time slips because first of all, I'm not a master trainer. and also this is not completed time slips. We use different prompts and we have a bit of a different elements. So I'm calling the program photo story, which is a very simple name and it's easier for Japanese to understand. Time slips can be like a time machine for Japanese people.
I
So
think, you know,
it's
it's really helpful to understand the different cultural contexts for the work. And I think, you know, you and I have gone back and forth about the,
right.
the poetic name of time slips, and that it's okay for stories to have not be chronologically based, but more poetic,
Yeah.
sort of collage format of that.
Yeah.
So it's really fascinating to watch sort of the different manifestations across different cultures. I'm going to ask you to hold there and then respond a little bit more. I want to make sure we get to Luca. And I'm also reminded of a fantastic collaboration that came out of another one of our in-person summer institutes when Bruce Devereaux up in British Columbia collaborated with Lisa Hort over in Australia, and they did mail exchanges of stories and images as well, which was just great. Luca, please share with us a little bit about, I know Italy had such an incredible crush of the pandemic, especially early on, and just a little how your program adjusted through this difficult time.
Okay, yes, thank you, everybody. When I started TimeSlips was 12 years ago, and I still propose TimeSlips sessions in the nursing home where I work. Not regularly, maybe when I change the group of people, I address the TimeSlips change. And TimeSlips has continued to be a resource for the nursing home's internal activities. Indeed, I think that precisely in hard times, TimeSlips reveals its transformative potential. The main goal in my mind when I started proposing TimeSlips was exactly trigger a change in the way that people look at and take care of people with dementia, even professional care. So during the pandemic, TimeSlips has been a resource for us. In some cases, we started our session using postcards coming from the States or all over the world from the TimeSlips community all over the world. When we started TimeSlips in Italy, we decided to use artistic photos. I mean, photos of professional photographers, because this is the land of art, so they say. So The most important spin-off of the TimeSlips method in our region has been the museum programs dedicated to people with dementia and their carers as well. Programs that obviously over time are no longer limited to creative storytelling meetings in front of the works of art. We offer all different kinds of activity. To date, the museums that offers programs for people living with dementia in Tuscany are more than 40, and they are organized in the network. And this network has a reaction to the pandemic. The transformation of the activities, of course, has been radical. Many museums moved to digital platforms. So we succeeded in keeping alive the relationships with the people we were aimed at before the pandemic. The network of museums, of Tuscan museums for Alzheimer's offered also an intense training to museums educators, which allowed many of us to resume our programs from remote. Also thanks to this exchange of experiences that Yoko was telling you with other international programs. The Yoko Association, our trip, but also some association in the States or in UK. So our museums programs are still alive and they're running an intense season.
Thank you so much, Luca. I want to make sure that the next question I have is a beautiful question, no pun intended, but it's for people to share a moment that was particularly meaningful for you, because I think in our struggle to adapt all of our programming to reach people through the pandemic, when clearly the need for meaningful engagement has never been more profound. But we sometimes overlook that it was also us experiencing that need for profound engagement, not just the people we serve. So I want to invite questions, since we're going to bump up to the time for questions. So please, if you have questions for particular panelists or in general, put those into the chat now and I'll pepper those in. But I really want to ask, and any of the panelists who would like to address it first, I won't go around again, but just if you have a particular moment that you want to share that was really meaningful for you, please let us know. Yeah, Jan.
Here in Newfoundland, we have a rather unusual police constabulary that is on horseback. So in the midst of the COVID pandemic, where I was not allowed to go in, I contacted the horseback police and asked if they would kindly bring Chestnut and Dragon to the window of the home where I do storytelling. And so clip, clop, up to the window came two wonderful horses. And it was one thing for me to go and wave through the window, but to have a four-legged, wonderful horse at the window was extraordinary. It was a really warm memory of contact during that time. I will also say that I wrote to the group every Monday, told them about my walks with the dog, and always included a silly joke. And when I came back, many of those letters had been glued in to their journals and they read them over and over again. So those were simple, but so powerful.
Sometimes the simplest is the best.
Yeah.
Anyone else in the group want to share a really, yeah, Ali.
It's just what do you call this? Wonderful to witness the powerful impact of creative arts and the joy it brings to the clients. It's just, and to the caregivers as well. It's just heartwarming and validating in the sense that we're doing the right thing. That we have these tools, the creative tools that we can use to make a difference to the life of people with dementia, and that storytelling actually became an escape for our elders and their caregivers as well. and we became more connected to them because of TimeSlips. So those are some particular meaningful moments that happened to us and continue to happen to us, actually. So
Thank you for that. Luca.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. The most dazzling episode is that of a lady who participated with great intensity in the programs of Meeting with Art remotely, even when she was locked in her room with a respirator because the COVID caused her severe respiratory failure. And when she lived for the last of many hospitalization, perhaps she imagined that she would not return. She handed me her diary. I'm convinced that she did not give it to me, but to all those persons who were there, choosing to face the pandemic with awareness and supporting each other. And I think it's important we have done it through art, because in her diary, there were moments in which she was frightened, since you realize perfectly if your lungs are lacking oxygen. And Jana tells these moments in the diary in form of poems, a habit she had when she was a teenager and perhaps resumed thanks to the activities of Encounter with Art that we proposed to her.
It's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, Sarah.
One of the upsides, I think, of doing TimeSlips on Zoom is being able to see people's caregivers, because ordinarily a family member or a paid caregiver is there with the storyteller. And that moment when the caregiver acknowledges or hears something wonderful that comes out of the storyteller's mouth that they had no idea was a possibility. Often something that's humorous, but I love seeing the looks on caregivers' faces, that look of, my mother said that. So you hear about that anecdotally, doing it, in in-person groups, but on Zoom you really get to see it, and I love that.
Thank you. Yoko and then Charmaine.
Okay. Hi. I think definitely the Zoom can transcend distance. That's one thing, because we are based in Tokyo and we have been providing programs mostly around Tokyo and in some other areas, but not all over Japan, not like TimeSlips. But with Zoom, anyone, either the person is in Tokyo or in Hokkaido or Okinawa Island, doesn't matter. You can reach out. And at the same time, we have been training for 10 years, but for the first time, the people in the Northern Island have participated. So people in the distance areas can participate in training program or the actual art trip program. And then with Zoom, you can record very easily, so that you cannot transcribe the story, but it can be recorded. So it's good when you review the story. It's easy to take notes. So I think there is a possibility of using this technology at Zoom and even chat. And also the other thing great about the doing the program with people at home or even at the care facility is that normally we just do this program with people with dementia and no caregivers, because caregivers are very busy. They do other places and do other stuff. But through Zoom, it cannot be done without them. So they sit by the people with dementia and they really help out. They kind of transcribe our questions again so that they can really understand. So it's much more collaboration between caregivers and then people with dementia, I think, through Zoom. Thank you.
That's great, Charmaine.
Awesome. Thanks, Anne. And just to kind of add on top of Sarah and Yoko, caregivers we found have been a really key on Zoom. And, there's so many meaningful moments to choose from, but we found that people love to tell stories. The storytelling, brought joy and community, not just with our clients, but, with their caregivers. And it's beautiful because we haven't had much opportunity to engage with the caregivers before, but now we see them almost every day on Zoom, and it still gives them that much needed joy, that respite, that mental relief that they really need, especially during these challenging times.
That's great. I'm seeing lots of questions about specific things about technological potential with offering sort of the feedback loop of the prompt and gathering the engagement back, and then the forms that can take, whether it's words or sounds or movement. Particularly mindful, Massimo, of your question about people without language. And at risk of sounding crass, that I have a TED Med talk that you can look up that's all about an engagement with people, with a person who is beyond language. So movement is really a very powerful way to connect beyond that. And that's also where the visual art, line or things like that. And there are whiteboards within Zoom or within other interfaces that you can use. And there's also Trudy Watt, and is a professor at UWM, who's been piloting a technology that has a whiteboard where the facilitator can literally hand write the text to echo the responses, so that it's visible in Zoom, in a Zoom-like format. And then the image is very present the whole time on screen as well, so that you can see both side by side. And that is really, really helpful. Also, in the next webinar that we're going to have, they're going to be sharing some resources about new resources, which I have right over there, but I'm not going to spoil it, is the new imagination kit, which has 15 beautiful questions, 15 image prompts, and then some very simple guidance, but it's all in your hand, so that you could do it, as I saw some people suggesting, both in your hand copy as well as online, which is also very helpful. Kathy, are you seeing other questions that I'm missing that you wanted to address?
It looks like we had a question. Folks were wanting to just know more about if they've trained in TimeSlips, does it matter if they don't speak English as a primary language?
I mean, clearly Yoko and Luca will tell you no.
Any language, people can tell stories.
Yes, and we have certified facilitators all across the world who train in English, but who are implementing in their own native languages, which is very helpful. Our current Beautiful Question project that is rolling out through Meals on Wheels and Well-Check phone calls is being simultaneously offered in Spanish at the same time. So that is really helpful and a big addition to our toolkit. Other things that the panelists want to add to this, the particularly around these adjustments, and also I think maybe what you want to take with you out of this moment. So much of the adaptation to this moment was born out of these restrictions that we were creatively trying to overcome. But I think now, if we go back to a sense of normal, what do you want to take with you? What I'm hearing from Yoko and Charmaine and some others is we want to take that ability to connect with the caregivers. But are there other things you might want to take with you from this moment? And again, just wave. Yeah, Jan, always the first with the hand there.
I just want to uphold a wonderful thing that happened. Kathy Hawkins, about, oh gosh, a year ago maybe, sent out a thing to facilitators inviting anybody who would like to mentor a new TimeSlips storyteller. I jumped on it and said, sure, I'll do that. And I have been partnered with a wonderful Shelley King, who's here today in Peterborough. From that friendship has come a wonderful opportunity to exchange ideas that she's doing in another part of Canada. It has sprung up to having Shelley now come and work with some of the student teachers virtually in my class in another couple of weeks. So I can't say enough about that lovely mentoring invitation that happened for all of us to reach across miles. And it's been really a wonderful, wonderful bonus through this COVID time. I think we've cheered each other up, and there's light at the end of that tunnel. So I really did want to say thank you to TimeSlips for that meaningful friendship that blossomed. Yeah.
And hopefully we can keep that going. Anyone else want to share what they might want to take with them out of this moment moving forward?
I think that although certainly connecting with people virtually compromises some aspects of the kinds of relationships that are created in person, but I think there's so many exciting possibilities that have been developed and explored this year of using technology in an appropriate way to broaden communities, to connect people all around the world in the way that we're able to do on this webinar. And that the potential for those kinds of exchanges and also continuing to explore different ways of, of using technology and using virtual platforms in ways that expand the delivery of creative engagement programming.
I would agree. And Luca, were you going to say something?
Yeah, if I can add something, in Italy during the pandemic, it has been clear that the health and social services that the community usually offers to older people with dementia are not enough. Both people with dementia and their carers need also, or maybe mainly, cultural engagement. That means to be involved into the community everyday life. And I hope that has been clear in this period for all of us, and of course mainly for people that are so isolated. I hope that what we learn now, what we learn in those months, will be a lesson for us.
I could not agree with you more that this separation of clinical and spiritual, psychosocial, emotional, cultural, the meaning and the purpose cannot be separated from the medical protection of what we just did for folks. They have to be integrated, which is a great call to all of us to keep doing what we're doing. Thank you for that. Any other, just a few minutes left for final comments. Yeah, Yoko.
As I mentioned that I think I'd like to continue with the program for ordinary seniors, not just the people with dementia, because I think this kind of program is necessary not just for people with dementia, but with any seniors, because seniors tend to be more isolated during the pandemic, and also for them, even after the COVID is over, I think there is a tendency that they'll still be afraid to go out and be in contact with people. The other thing I'd like to continue is international collaboration, because I think that bringing the seniors who are in the nursing home in Japan or nursing home in Italy or any other countries in the United States together on Zoom is just a fascinating thing. I mean, for us, it is fascinating, but for them, it is beyond their imagination. They still could not believe that they're talking to someone from the other side of the earth. So I'd like to develop this element of a program with other countries too. But the time difference is a problem.
A little bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
Charmaine.
Awesome. And just to, again, to add on Yoko, I really hope to continue advocating for creative engagement and showing special programs such as TimeSlips in the greater community, and maintaining that special connection, because now there is such a bigger emphasis on using the power of imagination and, tapping into our creativity.
Mhm.
I concur. And I think too that one of the ways that we've been framing it is separating people with dementia out is actually, there is a re-stigmatizing process in that. And if you create a program that is accessible for people with dementia and their caregivers to participate in, but also engage other people, it's just a joyful way of re-knitting them into their communities. And honestly, also, we don't always know who has dementia or who's starting to experience it. And when you create a welcoming trajectory of participants, it reduces the stigma of expressing, a supportive environment reduces the stigma of expressing those symptoms, or making those symptoms public. So I agree that I feel like these types of programming are moving toward inclusivity rather than special, as we used to call them, planet dementia programs. Like, now you're on a different planet, you have to stay there. Nobody wants to go there with you. But instead, we're all in one world together. So we are right at time. Of course, these things take on their own world. We didn't get, we answered questions in the chat, but I would just say, please share with us. I'm going to go back to screen share for a moment here. To just share the next, whoop, I guess I don't have the next one. Kathy, do you want to share the next webinar is going to be?
Absolutely. And it's interesting with these discussions. So our next three, or the last three webinars, next week's is on our tools and our product showcase. So you'll learn a little bit more about some of these very resources to create more inclusive communities with folks, whether they're at home or if they're in a care community. And we also, the two webinars after that, the last week of April, Tuesday will be with the student artist in residence from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, who are actually, up until COVID, were living in a care community. And Thursday of that week will be with 3 students from Duke University who are part of the Dementia Inclusive Durham Project. So you all are kind of preaching to the choir with us about these different things that you're looking for. And it makes me feel good that we're actually planning these webinar series based on what people want. We have the link for registration in the chat. And I just want to say thank you so much, not only to our attendees, but for all 7 of our panelists. And I feel so horrible. Maren kept losing her connectivity and we tried everything to get her back. And it's just one of those technological glitches. So we do hope that you are able to stay in touch with us, stay in touch with our panelists. Most of them are on the Certified Facilitator Facebook page. So if you want to reach out to them there, we certainly hope you use these communities that we've created. And we just look forward to continuing to connect all of you. The partnerships with Shelley and Jan that I had begun about 1.5 years ago, we have been really looking to launch more of those. This is what we want to do. So from all of us at Team TimeSlips to all of you, thank you for being a part of this incredible network. To our panelists, and we hope to see you again very, very soon. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Be well.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Luca, Sarah, all of you.
A pleasure.
It's a pleasure meeting you guys.
Let's keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
Even on
See you
Zoom,
soon.
we'd like to continue this kind of collaboration.
Until we can come and visit you.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
looking forward to learn from each and every one of
Once
you
the
guys.
COVID is over, once the planes start flying, yeah,
I'm on my way.
Yeah.
yeah,
You're all invited to Newfoundland.
Thank you.
right.